This presentation was created by John Bastine and Mazie Booth. The research article we chose is called Race, Inequality in the Medicalization of Drug Addiction, an analysis of documentary films. The article is by Tammy L. Anderson, Brittany L. Scott, and Philip R. Kavanaugh.
This article focuses on the medicalization increase of drug addiction. Yes, medicalization of drug addiction is increasing, but at the same time, it seems as if it is primarily only offered for white addicts. To study this, the authors used content analysis on many different documentary films so they could compare the findings of each one. From the content analysis, the authors were able to organize the information into 6 different categories which explain the different patterns of inequality. These 6 different groups are able to explain the inequality by race in both how the addicts are represented and the why behind their addictions. Drug addiction has been a hot topic for many years. There has been a big debate over the matter being criminally related or medically related for many years. Because all of the discussion and debate about drug addiction, we now understand addiction to be a specific brain disease that gives certain people certain behaviors. Since we have established addiction as a disease, we now know how to better help people with the disease and how we can prevent the disease for others. Thankfully, we have medicalized drug addiction more than it used to be, but now it has come to the attention of many people that medicalization of drug addiction might just be sparking up existing inequalities. That is what makes this study different. They are not just focusing on if addiction is a criminal or medical matter, but they are focusing on how the two matters are being racially influenced. Because the films they analyze in their study could be up to 17 years apart, proves that the researchers are looking for change of this topic that has occurred over time.
Data gathered by the Substance Abuse Mental Health Agency is helping to shed light on the modern addiction crisis. Table 1 is comprised of data that shows the percentage of users from 1999 to 2009 and their race aging from 12 through 96 years old. From 1999 to 2009, whites made up 68 to 72% of users of illicit drugs. Blacks comprised only 13 to 15%, and Hispanics only made up about 10 to 13% during those 10 years. Table 2 depicts data regarding the dependency of illicit drugs and the user's race aged 12 through 96 years old. During the 1999 to 2009 timeframe, most of the drug-dependent population was white, calculated at 66 to 72% of the drug-dependent population. The percentage of the black drug-dependent population was only 12 to 16%, and the Hispanics were only about 11 to 15% of the drug-dependent population. With this data, the Substance Abuse Health Mental Agency has helped us better understand the use of illicit drugs in America in regards to race. Obviously, the white population is more inclined to use and be dependent on illicit substances than the black and Hispanic population. To create this data accurately, content analysis was used on 64 documentary films between 1991 and 2008. These 68 documentary films were used to compile data for Table 3, which shows the year of the documentary and the type of drug featured in the film. The most prominent revelation was that the films just showed general addiction, not heavily focused on one drug, meaning the addicts in the film will use any type of illicit drug to satisfy their addiction. This form of addiction was featured in 27 of the 64 documentaries. The second most featured drug was heroin, being featured in 14 films out of the 64 that were analyzed. Table 5 shows the patterns that the documentaries exhibited and the race of the addicts caught in that common scenario. The most common pattern shown among all the documentaries was Type 4 and Type 2, which are tied for the most common patterns shown throughout the 64 documentaries. Pattern number 4 is an addiction to basic alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs, typically from white teens who were pressured into using or did so to help with their need to fit in. Pattern number 2 is heroin use among white suburban teens and young adults. These victims of addiction would typically start out on a prescription pain medication, which then turned into searching for a greater high and turning to heroin. The third most common pattern shown in the documentaries was the pattern of white middle-class people being addicted to pain medication.
To conclude, they did find from the films that drug addiction is being increasingly medicalized and that the medicalization of addiction is being racialized. When drug addiction is medicalized, the users are called patients, and when it is not medicalized, they are called junkies. White addicts are usually the ones that are more likely to be represented as patients, and the minorities are more likely to be represented as junkies. Because of this inequality being unveiled, it seems that there really is not that much social or medical progress after all. Additionally, it was found that certain treatments for drug addiction have been created but are being created and used in areas more prone to white people rather than minorities. The authors are also concluded that if the films really do correctly depict modern thoughts and truths of addiction, then this century is just repeating the same drug policies from the past. But with addiction being humanized on numerous TV shows and in movies, then we hope that people will notice similarities within one another to relate to addicts. If people begin to relate to addicts from these media presentations, then we hope that certain drug policies and health initiatives will continue to rise. One way the analysis could be improved is simply by updating the information. This data is used from as far back as 1991, that's over 20 years ago. The analysis could be redone with updated data from the most recent 10 years. The content analysis would be more useful to today's problem solving if the conclusions were made from more recent relevant data. Law enforcement could benefit from an analysis with data from the last 10 years because it could help them prioritize on the most important and pressing situations involving illicit drug use. Additionally, if the information was updated from newer sources, then readers like us could be more aware of today's stats on this topic, which could help us better understand the change of the situation and what we could be doing to help improve the issues presented in this article.